And will we see other people's images?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Transformational Tuesdays. I'm Teresa Velardi, your host for this time of inspiration, education, motivation, and conversation focused on transformation. And I am really excited to be back this week. Took a little break last week while I was away on retreat in Georgia, and I'm currently in Memphis, Tennessee. I had a speaking engagement last weekend, which was awesome. Great women coming together for a conference put on by Dr. C. Denise Richardson called Purpose Shakers. So if you have a chance, there's lots of stuff on my Facebook page that various people have been posting. So go ahead and check out the pictures from what was truly a great event. And I want to give a shout out to Sheila Sutherland, who is the reason why Scott Wilhite is joining us today. She reached out to me and said that he was the man to talk about the happiness plan. So I want to say thank you to Sheila and hope that you will watch this video replay if you don't join us a little bit later on today. I know you were traveling, so thanks again. And without further ado, I want to introduce my guest, Scott Wilhite, who is the creator of the Feed Your Happy app, which I just put on my phone, by the way.
Awesome.
He's also the founder of Encourage Life, letter N, the word courage.life, and the best-selling author of the 7 core skills of everyday happiness, scientifically proven skills for a happier, more meaningful life. But he wasn't always happy. I think every one of us has had something like that in our lives. He wasn't always happy. In fact, for years, he considered himself a tortured artist. As an award-winning commercial filmmaker, he was enjoying 10 of the most creative years without actually enjoying them. This all came to a head with anxiety, frustration, and built-up dissatisfaction pushed him to unexpectedly quit his job. Fortunately, at the same time, he learned about the Harvard-led research in positive psychology and found how simple it actually is to enjoy a life of peace and fulfillment when you train your mind deliberately. Once you learn happiness is a skill, you'll never go back to just wishing for it. Learn more about him and his systemized approach on Scott Wilhite, WILHITE.com. And I want to say welcome, Scott. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you. And that was a really long intro, but I appreciated that.
Well, it wasn't as long as some that I get, but it was really powerful because, you know, what you said was happiness is a skill and you weren't always happy. And if anybody's listening and watching on video, if you have had a time in your life where you weren't happy, just give me a hands up here. I mean, I think we have all gone through that. So tell us a little bit about your journey, Scott. Let's hear where that glitch was and how you got out of it and what you can teach us to do the same.
Awesome. Well, yeah, actually, you know, I was reminded of part of my story that I had totally forgotten. This last week, I had a really cool thing, and I was kind of going through, you know, some old memories and things and evaluating stuff. And I remember this thing that has shaped my life kind of unconsciously since I was in elementary school. And I remember being called down to the office in elementary school. That was always kind of a scary thing. And what they did was they were doing some hearing testing. Well, I knew that I was deaf in one ear, but I didn't want anybody else to know about it. And they had us down and they put us on this long table, and there must have been 3 or 4 other kids at the same time. And they had these little units set up, and you'd put these big headphones on. I don't know if you've ever done this and remember this. You know, put the headphones on that kind of blocks out all the other sound. And the guy would tell you, okay, I'm going to play a sound, and when you hear it, I want you to raise your hand for the side that you hear it in. And so I'm watching these other kids, you know, because there's a line before you get there, and I'm seeing the kids go like this, and then they'll go like this, and then they'll go like this. And I knew I was deaf, and I didn't want anybody else to know about it. I was scared about that. I mean, what would they think about me? You know, I'm damaged. You know, there's something wrong with me. And so it got up to be my turn, and I heard the sound, And then I didn't hear anything else, but I was sure something must have gone off. So I raised my left hand, to say that I heard it. And, just kind of went through. That began my life of faking it.
Oh.
And just pretending. And the reason that I bring that up is because we often all get into that state of pretending. We want life to look, on the outside, or on, the stuff that we feel maybe is missing on the inside. We want the outside to look all shiny, like everything's going well. Well, fast forward to this was like, I don't know, 8 or 10 years ago now. I guess it's about 10 years ago. I was on a filming trip. I'm a commercial filmmaker by trade. And I was sent to Cambodia to film. It was a humanitarian trip, and we were sent to film the poor, impoverished, sad people of Cambodia. Well, and it was for a great cause. It was to help out with water and wheelchairs and a bunch of other things. Well, I realized as I'm in this this tiny minivan, we're like packed in with members of the film crew and boxes of camera gear, and it's so hot and sweaty there, and also the camera had an issue, so that we couldn't have the air conditioner on in the van, so we had to leave the windows down so that it was acclimated. So we could, if we took it from an air-conditioned van out into this humidity, it would just wreck everything and spoil the trip. So, so we got the windows down, we're packed in, we're uncomfortable, we're going through these rickety streets, and I look out the window and I realize I've got a big problem. Because I see poor, impoverished people, but I don't see sad people. And I look out there, and it seems like they could always tell when I was staring at them. And I remember, there was this family of 5 on this motorcycle next to me, and they're just packed in there on a single motorcycle, and I'm looking at them, and one of the people right in the middle looks over and sees me, and as our faces meet, their eyes just light up. Their whole face beams with happiness as they smile back at me, and it was really disconcerting. And so I raised my left hand. I smiled back, pretending that life was just as good for this American as it seems like on the outside. But I realized at that point that they had something that I didn't. They had this joy, this natural happiness that just overpowered them. Well, that began my journey. I decided I was going to be as happy as they were, and I was going to search for it. I was going to find it. So anyway, that began like a 10-year journey of frustration as I looked outside of myself, and as I tried to, do it through winning awards, through creative achievement, through a nicer house or a newer car or whatever like that, and it was just so frustrating. And the harder I worked, the more frustrated I became, because we just get tangled up in those outside things. Well, there came a point, you read in my bio, where the wheels fell off. I was so frustrated. I was so angry and just discontent inside that I quit my job without having anything else to go to. And that actually ended up being one of the most fortunate things, because on the very last day of me working there, I'd given notice, so it wasn't like I quit and left. But on the very last day, I met a guy, and he had a book under his arm, and it was on the science of happiness. And as soon as he said that, there was something inside of me that just leaped out and said, that's what you want. That's what you've been missing. And so, I went and I grabbed the book, went to the bookstore, grabbed the book, found lots of other books. And it was, what it is that Harvard and Stanford and UCal Berkeley and University of Pennsylvania and other top-tier universities are studying the happiest, most resilient people through positive psychology. And they are finding out, what is it about them that makes them tick? What makes them uncommonly happy? And also, there's all this amazing research that shows that when you are happier, you're more resilient, you're healthier, you bounce back faster from illnesses, you're more likely to get a raise, you're more likely to be considered attractive. I was really hoping that would come in for me, and all these other amazing things that I didn't know about. And that began my transformation. I tell people that when I read about this, I was temporarily changed forever.
Temporarily changed forever. I love that.
Temporarily.
I
Because, yeah, because, you know, as with anything, you start to drift back into your old ways of thinking. And that's what happened to me. I was great at night when I was reading the books and as I was learning about this stuff. But in the daytime, when I was in a routine where I was in kind of familiar circumstances, I would revert back to my old ways of thinking and my old ways of acting. And I would get the results that I was getting before.
That you've always gotten, right? So you got to do
Exactly.
something different in order to be able to change that. What is it? You get what you've always gotten when you do what you've always done, and in order to be able to make a change, you have to do something new. That's not the way it's quoted, but it's that.
But that's the idea,
yes,
yeah.
So, you know, and I'm interested because as soon as you said Cambodia and the impoverished people, and they had smiles on their face, I was brought back to a situation where there's this children's choir that goes around the country called Daraja, and they're from Kenya, Karigoto, Kenya, and Uganda, I think. And these kids, they have nothing. They have nothing. Their families, it's a hit or miss day to day whether they ever have food. Yet when you sit down in front of these children, even when they're off the stage thing is one thing, but when you sit down and have a conversation, they are so filled with joy and happiness, and they have nothing. So I love what you said about, you know, you thought it was the car, you thought it was a bigger house, you thought it was this, you thought it was that, but it's something that happens internally. And I know the struggle that you just described about reading the books, feeling it at night, and living something different in the morning because of the fact that that's what you're used to, you know. So I know that you have a way for us to get off of that roller coaster ride that you just described. And I want to know what you consider mental cataracts, and are they related to what you just said?
They are. And I've got a great story to tell you about mental cataracts. One last thing that I just want to touch on before that was part of my transformation. And when I say transformation, I mean, we all know that that's like a more permanent thing. It's not the, you know, temporarily changed forever. But one of the things that I was doing, it was at night. Anyway, I remember reading this study, and the researcher, the 10 most important words came to me when I read about this researcher that said, you can't be grateful and unhappy at the same time.
So true.
Yeah, and I had never thought of that, and I thought, oh my gosh, well, I'm unhappy now because I'd kind of started to figure that out by then. So if there's something I can do to deliberately energize my gratitude, that will make me much more happier, you know. And so it's more in my control. And I'd read about all of these different activities that you could do, different exercises, and all of a sudden I felt empowered. And so that's where I came up with the idea that happiness is a skill. And the awesome thing is if happiness is a skill, that means there's something you can do about it. You're not stuck, you're not trapped. You can be in charge of how you feel simply by being better at your skill and upskilling with that, if that makes sense to you.
Yes, it does. So, and I'm a huge proponent of gratitude. So, and I know the statement that you just said is absolutely true. And I encourage people to do a daily gratitude list, a journal, keep a gratitude journal, and really find a way to be grateful in their life. It keeps you out of self-pity. It keeps you out of so many things, keeps you healthier, keeps you happier. Everything that you just said is absolutely true. So I'm a huge proponent of gratitude. And for those of you who are listening, either on the phone or here live or listening to the replay, Scott, join with me in saying, start a gratitude journal.
Oh my goodness, it will change your life.
Absolutely.
And that actually ties in with the cataract story that I was going to tell you. So I was on another trip. I love telling stories. I hope that's okay.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I'm on this filming trip, and we're in Mongolia. Again, this is another humanitarian trip, and we were going to do the most amazing thing. We were following these doctors, these North American doctors, who were going and they were restoring sight to the blind. Wow. Can you believe that? I mean, is that the coolest thing ever? And in my mind, I just have these amazing thoughts, you know, that I see these doctors are like pioneering some new technique that's so breakthrough that the FDA or whoever will not license it yet in America. So they're going to Mongolia to experiment on the people there and help them out and try this out until it can be, safely approved. And so I have all these crazy things in my imagination. Well, it turns out they weren't doing anything amazing at all. It wasn't miraculous. It wasn't scientifically any sort of breakthrough at all. All they were doing was doing cataract surgery. And if you think about it, in our country, well, in North America and other developed countries, you get cataracts removed like you go and get your teeth cleaned at the dentist. You go in, you get out, boom, you're done. But for them, they didn't have access to vision care. They didn't have regular checkups. And so they had these cataracts that would build up and it would cloud their vision, and it would get cloudier and cloudier until they became blind. Either in one eye or both eyes.
Wow.
And they just thought that's how life is for them, and they accepted it until these doctors showed up and were able to, through this simple surgery, remove the cataracts, and suddenly they had their life back. Well, the reason I bring that up is because I have realized in my transformation, in learning about gratitude, in learning about all these other skills that you can do to be in charge of your life, I have learned that we have mental cataracts, that we have this cloudy thinking that builds up in our mind and limits us and prevents us from being who we can be and makes us make choices out of fear, out of anxiety. We live in the shell of who we could be, and we don't know about it. We're not conditioned to look for those mental cataracts and to remove them. And just like with the physical cataracts, the surgery is super simple, and so as we talked about, like a gratitude journal, I mean, when I first heard about that, I thought, yeah, right, that's not really going to do anything. And so I didn't do anything about it. I didn't put it into place. And, but at the same time, I was reading all of these books on the science behind all of this, and I was seeing it, and I believed it because it was science-based. Mm-hmm. And so I told myself, you know what, I'm just going to be more thankful in my prayers. And I'm just going to say thank you more in my prayers, and we'll call that good. And, I didn't do it. 2 weeks later, I realized,
plans, right?
yeah. I realized that I had, I had said I was going to do it, but I hadn't actually done it. And I wasn't any better. I was still feeling frustrated and angry and trapped. And so I decided I was going to put this into practice. And I started writing in my gratitude journal. And for a whole week, nothing changed. It didn't affect me one bit. And, and I was kind of telling myself, see, I knew that this was just fluffy stuff. And anyway, until it was about a week later. But the important thing in this, and I hope this is something that you take in if you're not keeping a gratitude journal or doing something, the important thing is that I committed to myself. Each night before I go to bed, I'm going to write down 3 fortunate things that happened to me. Mm-hmm. And I made that commitment to myself, and I'm one of those kind of people that when I make a commitment, I like to keep it. And so I remember it was about a week later, I go and I'm so tired, and I'm just dragging myself up to bed, and it had been a terrible day, and I'm tired and exhausted, and I realize I haven't written in my gratitude journal, and I have to think about 3 fortunate things that happened to me today, and I couldn't think of any, and I got more frustrated and more angry and started to spiral down. Well, I decided the next day I wasn't going to let that happen again, and so I was going to look earlier for 3 fortunate things. And I remember I live up in the mountains above Sundance, and there's a little canyon that I have to go through to get down, and it's narrow, and at that time it was just kind of one lane both ways, and so if you get behind a slow person, you're there forever. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I got behind a slow person, and I started to feel frustrated immediately, and then just almost immediately the guy pulled over to let me pass. And as he did that, I thought, hey, that was fortunate. And I'm going to write about that. And as I started to think about that, all of a sudden I felt something that I had really never felt before. And it was those feelings of gratitude. And the interesting thing is, I bet that stuff happened all the time, but I wasn't looking for it. I wasn't conditioning my mind to look for how fortunate my life is, how great it is, how wonderful people are around me. And so it was by doing that conditioning, keeping the journal, doing other activities that would help me have a higher level of gratitude that really changed my life.
Yeah. I love that you shared that story, because I want to ask you this. In your work and in your speaking around the country, and in what you do in terms of your service to the world with these films that you're making and the capturing of all this beautiful stuff, have you discovered that the world is getting more grateful? Are people really learning to embrace this process? Or is the world in general still stuck in the feeling sorry for themselves, not having enough, always wanting more? What's just your general opinion? Is this catching on? I'm hoping it's catching on. Please tell me it's catching on.
I would like to say it's catching on. I don't really know. The interesting thing about me that has changed as I've been doing this, as I've been engaged in finding my purpose and living my purpose, and I hope that everyone who's listening kind of considers some things, that maybe there's a reason that they were sent here, that there's a reason that they were given these skills and talents and challenges, and that you start to live that. But as I've been doing that and going around speaking and talking to people, I have found that my circles that I interact with are the happier people. They are the people that are doing things. They are the movers and shakers. They are the ones that are making a contribution. And so I don't know if on general, this is catching on, but there is a movement of amazing people who are making a difference in the lives of others. And I am so grateful to be associated with them. Yeah, and my friendships are richer and deeper and much more rewarding with the kind of people that I hang around with.
Yeah. So, that leads me to, your book is based on scientific evidence and scientific principles and findings, which are directly related to happiness. If this is a scientific process, first tell me a little bit about that. And the name of your book, again, is The 7 Core Skills of Everyday Happiness, scientifically proven skills for a happier, more meaningful life. So if there is indeed a science behind this, please share some of that with us, how people can, because I'm like, all right, I always thought that it was a flipping of a switch in a mindset, and that may be part of the scientific process. I don't know. As someone who is I'm a potter by, I'm gifted with a gift in my hands. But it's all science. It all works. It's scientifically, and there's a whole part of me that is this science nerd and wants to know, why this actually is a scientific thing. When you think of happiness, I know I'm taking a long way around here, but when I think of happiness, I think it's a heartfelt thing and it's an emotional thing, but you're telling me it's scientific. So talk to me.
Okay. I got so excited when I heard that there was science behind this, because at that point I really needed something to believe in, and science was just a lot easier than other things. And also to see that it was top tier universities, Harvard, Stanford, UCal, Berkeley. I mean, there's just, and more are hopping on board and studying this. But the studies are amazing. I'll tell you just a few. I get super excited, and I'm sorry if I jump over, go around a little bit. The guy, actually, he was just released, but the guy who has been our Surgeon General for the last few years has been going around speaking. This is a U.S. Surgeon General. I don't know where everyone's from. Maybe we have some worldwide people here, but the U.S. Surgeon General was going around and he was telling people not about, healthy diets and to stay away from, smoking and addictive substances. And he wasn't talking about exercise. He was going around prescribing happiness, because, and he's the top U.S. medical officer. But what he's found is that happiness is a protectant. It lowers your blood pressure. It lowers your risk of heart attack or stroke. And anyway, he goes on and he talks about all of these different things that just biologically how happiness affects us. And then, kind of explains that happiness is something that we can influence. We can influence it for ourselves and we can influence it for others. And it's a little bit different than the happiness that is pleasure seeking or the hedonic kind of stuff, but it's about connecting with others. It's about having lasting relationships. It's about service. It's about gratitude and different things of that nature, which I just thought was amazing. That somebody in that position with that kind of medical background would go around prescribing happiness. Another study that's one of my favorites too is called it's the yearbook study, and it's by Harker and Keltner. And what they did was they took the yearbooks from these women, college-age women. I think the years were 1959 and 1960, and it was about 50 different women that they followed. And what they did, how you can see somebody smile and you could tell if it's a genuine smile or if it's fake.
Yeah.
Well, there's a little thing in your eyes and there's a little thing at the corner of your mouth that's what you notice. And when they turn up and move just right, you recognize that's a genuine smile. Well, what they did was they coded all of these pictures for fake and real smiles. And the women who had real smiles, they charted them over a 30-year period, and they found that they had happier marriages, they had fewer life reversals, they were healthier, and they charted them through all of this, and the only difference is their genuine smiles.
Wow.
Because everyone smiles in a yearbook,
You're right. Everyone does smile in a yearbook.
Yeah, so it's the people who were genuinely happy had life go better for them. It's kind of like how the rich get richer. It just spirals up for them. And anyway, I thought that was amazing. One more thing on the side, on a similar study, they replicated that study, and they looked at Major League Baseball players in like the 1928 season. And they went through the cards and they found those that were smiling with genuine smiles. And those that had the genuine smiles lived on average 5 to 8 years longer than the rest of them.
Wow.
Anyway, it's just amazing stuff like this about longevity, about, health, about, and there's stuff on being better at your job, being, better negotiators, being better team leaders, being more respected. All these things just come out of it. But we look at happiness as something that comes after it. It's something at the end, and it's something that's outside of our control.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out it isn't.
Yeah, exactly. It's like doing something for the happiness as the end result of it, rather than bringing happiness into it and turning any event into a positive experience. Totally different ends of the spectrum, completely.
Yeah.
And
it's really not about like faking it too. I mean, we kind of talked about that with the yearbook study, that you can, do the flight attendant smile. But people recognize it. But to get the actual benefits, it's a genuine thing. And you can actually do things to be genuinely happy. And if you take a skills-based approach, then, through repetition, through consistency, through intensity, you can actually get better at all of these things. So anyway, it's so amazing. I just love sharing this with people. I
love it. And I have to ask you, on the Major League Baseball thing, my sister's a huge Yankee fan. I mean, forget it. You don't even want to go into her house. There's Yankee memorabilia all over the place, including a seat from the old stadium in the den. And a brick from the old stadium in the same room. Unbelievable. But anyway, my question is, because that's a business. That's their lifestyle. Did you notice? Did they say anything about the fact that they were not just living longer, but had stronger, more successful careers in their positions that they played? Is that something that was part of the study? Or it would be interesting to know that, because I think that when you're happier, you do your job better. You do your job to the best of your ability. You find purpose in your job, whatever that may be. And you may not find purpose in your job. And to that, I would say, find another job, find what brings you purpose, find what brings you happiness, and then go there, because that's where success lives, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. As far as that study, I don't know. I know that they were looking at longevity on that.
Okay.
But if you want to check some of those benefits, the Harvard Business Review, because Harvard is really one of the leaders in this science, they do articles all the time and talk about the financial benefits for companies when people are happier, and how they just make better decisions, anyway, it's really interesting how, and more research is coming out on that. In fact, sorry, I just get super excited about
Go ahead. I mean, this is your hour. Go ahead.
Okay,
We
well,
want to know everything you can share about happiness. And I just want to say this. Barbara Yeager is usually here with us, and she's not here today. She was a happiness coach. She would go to happiness in the workplace. So she would go to various corporations and teach them how to be happier at work. So yeah, there is something to this, but I want you to go where you were just going, and another study or something that you were going to say. I'm sorry I cut you off.
Oh no, you're fine. I get so excited when I hear all of this research. And there's a study that came out the middle of, was it this month or middle of last month? Anyway, it was really recent. It came out from Northwestern University, and what they did was they studied men, primarily men, with HIV. So they had just found out that they had HIV, and they divided them into two groups. One that was the control group, and one where they basically took a skills-based approach to happiness. And they did a 5-week intervention to where each week they were given activities that they would do, and they would meet together for these 5 weeks and worked on this. Well, then they studied them 15 months later. And they found that those that were using a skills-based approach to happiness, that they had less of the HIV disease in their bloodstream 15 months later. They also found, in comparison to the two groups, the control group, the amount of people on antidepressants doubled, whereas it stayed constant for those others. And you can just kind of imagine that, life is changing quite dramatically for these guys. But anyway, just amazing research like that. And they have 2 other studies that are still going on. One is people with type 2 diabetes, and one is people who are caregivers for those with dementia. And so I am so excited to hear what their research is. But, it seems like consistently it's coming out that there is something we can do about our happiness, and it impacts more areas of our life than we ever thought was possible.
So that being said, are we supposed to be happy all the time?
All the time? Well, that's an interesting question. A lot of people ask that, and I think it's because they look at it and go, man, that's got to be a lot of work. And maybe it's because they think that they're faking it, and because we just get used to that, lifestyle of just pretending life is good for me as it really seems, raising our left hand when you don't hear anything there. But I think that's kind of how it comes across for people, is that it's work. But if you make it a lifestyle, if you make optimism basically a lifestyle, then it's a lot easier. And if you think about think about physical fitness. If you become physically fit and you are consistently doing things, and you're eating right, and you're in ways that are healthy for you, and you're exercising in ways that are healthy for you, it's just kind of a natural thing for you to maintain and to enjoy better health with that. Well, the same thing when we're putting things into our thoughts, when we're helping deliberately, intentionally create great healthy thought patterns. Another important thing to remember too is that this isn't about pretending or somehow convincing our mind. It's not about putting on rose-colored glasses and pretending the bad stuff doesn't happen. It's about becoming much more awake and aware. and realizing that there's positive and negative, there's healthy and not healthy, there's constructive and not constructive. And when you are more aware of this, then you, of course, you choose the healthy side.
Right.
And that then helps you grow, and it kind of snowballs to where it just becomes healthier and healthier, and serves you much more, as you do that. So, of course, it's not about being happy all the time. It's not, you don't repress any sad feelings. Feeling. Oh, I have a section in my book. I'm trying to remember how I phrased it, but anyway, feeling empathy, feeling compassion towards people, feeling sadness is an important part of life, because that's how we connect with others. Mm-hmm. When someone else's heart is breaking and we feel their pain, we feel that empathy for them. That's what connects us. That's what helps us, feel human and feel alive. And we need to not repress those feelings, but explore them and remember that that's really what gives us the zest for life. So.
Yeah. And I know from my own experience, the worst thing that you can do is really suppress your emotions, because that leads you to go places where you will have something else, take something else in to fill you up. This is where addiction starts, if you don't honor your feelings, and whether they're happy, sad, or otherwise. And speaking of addiction, a lot of these programs, that's how you fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
What's your feeling on that, where happiness is concerned?
Well, interesting. Again, there's some more science on this that's really fun. You can fake it till you become it. We did talk about flight attendant smiles, and that you don't get the benefits, of just faking it. Although there are certain things that you can do. In fact, right here, I have a handy dandy chopstick, and I use this occasionally. And what it is they did a study where they had people take a chopstick or a pencil and put it in their mouth, in their teeth like this. And what it did was it forced the corners of their mouth up as if it was a genuine smile. And it triggers your mind into thinking that you are actually smiling and you are actually happy. And it will release some of those. Oh, there you go. You got it on there. You're trying it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Isn't that great? Yeah. And so it starts to trigger these things in our minds to help to make us think that we're actually happy. And it will trigger these things in a way that you can actually snowball it. The study that they did was they had people look at Far Side comics. I think it's awesome whenever science can use Far Side comics. But they had people that would do this and kind of fake a smile while going through, and then, a control group who just went through it. And those that were, doing this, they started to, they thought that the comics were funnier and enjoyed them much more. Wow. And there's a great TED Talk. Oh, I'm trying to remember her name. But if you Google like power pose or something, and she talks about how we can actually change our biological makeup by having a power pose that we do.
Oh, yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
And that it actually changes, the testosterone. We all have testosterone and some other things that we can influence how we feel, whereas normally when things start to go bad, we kind of shrink and become smaller. Well, by intentionally doing things like this, we can actually change things. So there are things that you can do to fake it till you become it. Yeah. But the important thing is that you're not trying to fool other people. It's not, again, putting on that fakeness. It's about, okay, what can I do? How can I be deliberate? How can I be intentional about my life and live my life rather than, being controlled by it? So anyway, there are great techniques that you could use to do this.
That power pose, and then that goes into that also. I've heard that when you're trying to change a habit, that and you recognize something that is now new, that maybe you didn't feel, that power pose or that victory stance or whatever is a way of anchoring that new way of thinking or that new way of being into your physicality, into your body. So I understand where this all goes. and I understand the science behind it. So there is, you're in the scientific area here. So which is something that I never thought of before I was introduced to you, that there was actually a science to happiness. So
isn't that awesome?
yeah, I just want to give our listeners a heads up. We're a little bit more than halfway through. So if you have a question or a comment and you're on screen, just raise your hand. If you're on the phone, press *9 so I can recognize you. It will raise your hand. Or you can, if you are in a place where you can't actually talk, you can just go into the chat and send me a question in the chat while we continue our conversation. So feel free to ask any questions of Scott as we continue our conversation. So the skills-based approach, we touched a little bit on it there with the chopstick thing and, the victory stance or the power pose, what you just said. This is, what is really some of the other skills that you might want to share with us, and how can people apply this information so that they can move away from that negative, all that stuff, and live their life in a more positive, happy way?
Yeah. So I'll explain some of the skills that we've identified as core skills. The first skill we already talked about is gratitude, of course. I mean, that is the king. That comes up over and over and over again in all of these studies. And your life is just so much better if you can be deliberately, intentionally grateful. And I can also, explain some downsides of being thankful if you want to, go there. But so gratitude is a big one. Being able to savor the now, being able to live in the present, to be able to enjoy what you have where you're at, and really be with the people that you're around, and not be living in the future or dwelling on the past, that brings regret and sadness or anxiety and fear if you're looking in the future. Third one is, if I have this in the right order, is that's the service component. Lift someone else. It's having that human connection and feeling that your life matters, that you're here for a reason, and that you make a contribution. The fourth skill I have is the detox skill, which is getting rid of stress, anxiety, and worry. Reframing your story, reframing how you perceive things, because often we are limited by our beliefs and by the stories that we tell and retell ourselves. The fifth one is about fostering positive relationships. We are social creatures, and I am such an introvert. I recharge when I'm alone, and it really helps me out. But if I don't have human connections, then I really, wither, and we all do. And so even if you claim to be an introvert, and I'm there with you, you need to have human connections. You need to feel like your life matters and that you have purpose. Skill 6 is to improve daily. Something that helps you strive, something that, fills you with awe, and you can experience newness of life. You think about little kids and how well they grow, while they're young. And then, we stop learning, we stop growing, and we stop experiencing those great feelings of joy. And then the 7th one is called begin again, because in all of these, you'll plateau. I remember when I plateaued with my gratitude journal, and I wasn't getting the charge that I used to. Well, there are things that you can do to change that up, add some new elements, add some new journal prompts and things like that. And again, begin to feel those feelings that you had again. So there are things that you can do. All of this really is about learning to be intentional and deliberate in your life and chart the life that you want. So
you just had something that's really key. I wrote them all down. I'm going to recap them in a second, so that and I'll put them on the blog, which I follow this up with the blog, so that
cool.
It'll be out on transformationaltuesdays.com, and a link to the replay will be there also, and the video would be on the replay page also. But you said something about feel the feelings. Now, it's not just about writing things down that you're grateful for the sake of getting the job done every night because somebody told you that it would be a way to happiness. You've got to have the emotion and the actual feeling of gratitude behind it. I think it's Bob Proctor who talks about the law of attraction and the gratitude, and having to, you can project into the future something that you're grateful for. Example, and use this statement, I'm so happy and grateful now that I have I don't know, a new car in the driveway, my whatever, and describe the new car.
Yeah.
Just to come up with an example. But you can't just say it. You have to have the gratitude behind it. I am so happy and grateful now that blah, blah, blah. And that's a way of manifesting. But you've got to get the feeling in there. So I've always said, I feel so happy and grateful now that blah, blah, blah is going on in my life, or has happened, or is sitting in my driveway, or, whatever the case may be. What's your feeling about that? And how important is it, to replace those feelings, that detox that you said of stress, anxiety, and worry with a genuine feeling of happiness and gratitude?
Yeah, you have a lot of questions in there, a lot of great things to talk about. Absolutely, you got to feel it. That is the key component to this. It's not about going through the motions. As an example, if you think about filmmaking, think about movies, you can tell sometimes there's a character or, an actor or an actress that will just really play the part so well that you feel what they feel, and there's magic that happens. And then there's times when, they say they phoned it in. They just went through the motions and they did it, but you didn't feel anything. That's kind of where we need to get with gratitude, for example. It's not just about going through the motions, but it's actually feeling, gratitude. And I do need to explain that what gratitude is it is feeling that you are the recipient of deliberate kindness. So gratitude is a connection between you and someone else, or you and your higher power, and feeling that you are the recipient of deliberate kindness. And through that transference of love is where things really start to be magical. Another thing that I wanted to mention out, you talked about, just kind of going through the motions, and I thought about kind of the negative side of thankfulness. Mm. And I found myself caught in this web for a long time, because I thought, well, I'm a grateful person because I say thank you all the time. And then I had to think about how I was really feeling, because I wasn't feeling grateful. And in fact, what I was feeling was indebtedness. Mm. For instance, I don't have a truck. Everyone around me owns a truck, in the place that I live. And I needed to move a washer. And I remember asking a neighbor of mine if I could borrow his truck to move this washer. And the whole time I am feeling down on myself, that I'm less of a man because I don't have a truck, and this and that. And when I returned the truck to him, I said thank you like 10 times, because I felt unequal. I felt, and so I turned something that was a very positive thing into a negative for myself, simply by the way that I spoke to myself, the story that I told to myself. And it made me spiral down, and it fooled me into thinking that I was grateful when I wasn't grateful. Does that make sense? It's feeling something, but feeling the right kind of emotion that we want to have that will be healthy and productive in where we want to go.
It's kind of like somebody wins the lottery, and instead of being genuinely happy with it for them, you're like, why wasn't it me? And it turns it around, I mean, my ex-mother-in-law was like that. My mother won a large amount of money in Las Vegas. It was a really great story. And she always had this sixth sense about when she was going to win money. It's crazy. But anyway, when I was still married to my ex-husband, and his mother found out about it, and the first words out of her mouth was, why wasn't it me?
Oh.
And I thought that was pretty bizarre, but that's, we're by what I heard you say is, like, sometimes even though we're grateful for things, or think we're grateful for things, we feel badly about ourselves because we don't have the thing that somebody else does. We're not enough. It taps into that I'm not enough story, or I'm not worthy story, which are two deadly traps. Stay out of them, right? Yeah. So,
no, I do want to point out one thing on this. As you start to recognize these stories that we're telling ourselves, as we start to recognize these these unhealthy, unconstructive thought patterns, what we need to remember is we've got these mental cataracts on, and so don't beat yourself up. Don't say I'm bad. Don't say, that, and start to spiral down. Just recognize that you've got them, and you can do small little things to get rid of these and to have the clarity and everything. You know, when you get physical cataracts, you didn't do anything wrong to get those. You know, they just happen, and life just happens. But you can be deliberate about removing them, both the physical and the mental ones.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for bringing me back to that, because that's really, because it's something that's covering that up. So it needs to be. All right, so the surgery is in your book. Let's see your book.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so this is the book. It looks backwards on my screen, but it's called The 7 Core Skills of Everyday Happiness. Anyway, you can find it on Amazon. And they will deliver it right to your door. They've got the Kindle version, and even if you are somebody that drives around a lot, there is the audiobook version too. But anyway, it's just such an amazing idea for me to have a skills-based approach to something that I used to think was outside of myself. I always felt stuck. I always felt trapped. I felt victimized by my circumstances. And I thought that's just how life was for me. So if any of that resonates with you, if you've ever felt, in those places, I hope you grab that, or, one of these other great books on the science of happiness, and learn these different things that you can do to be deliberate and intentional in your life.
Absolutely. Talk a little bit about your app, Scott. I know there's an app on the phone. I have it on my phone. I just downloaded it the other day.
Yeah. Okay. So I have other tools and resources. The way that you get better at any skill is through consistency, through repetition, and through intensity. And so I have different tools that can help with that. The book, of course, gives the education. The app is a great mobile mindset conditioning tool. I have an online course. If you go to, it's called gethappynow.life. That gives an online course where for 10 minutes a day, it will help you go through all of these and activities and things in kind of an intense program. It's a 12-week program to start conditioning yourself and to develop those thought patterns that will be healthy and constructive for you. But the app is called Feed Your Happy. And if you are an iPhone user, there you go. It's kind of game-based. It gives you different cards and activities to do. And it works for you if you're already kind of in the mindset of making changes and doing activities. Has a journal prompt, a gratitude journal thing in there with 50 journal prompts, and just really helps you do that while you're out and about doing that thing we call living. It's got some reminder things that will alert you, time to feed your happy and other things. So I'm all about the tools. When I found out that happiness was a skill, I also found out that I was not very good at that skill. And so it's taken me a while, but through putting these systems into place, it's changed me, and not just temporarily. Kind of, I don't know, maybe you'd say transformed me.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the word of the hour. And I love the fact that you have all of this, all of the seven tools in the Knowledge Center. Skill 1, be grateful. 2, savor the now. Lift someone else is number 3. Don't worry. Foster relationships is number 5. Skill number 6 is improve daily and begin again, which is all that you shared in the right order. So if you're concerned about that, they're in that order on here. So, and I also want to say that, when you shared with me, there was a movie called Falling Up that you made about Mae Johnson's life. And I didn't have any idea who she was, but I took the time to really watch that movie. I actually watched it twice, and I watched it again before I came on the call today. And it is, it's life-changing. So for people who get stuck in the woe is me, and this happened to me, and life is never going to be the same, and whatever else is, go to Scott's website, Encourage, the letter N, the word courage, .net or .life.
.life. Yeah, it's kind of a different one. .life.
Encourage.life, and go there and explore some of the things that are on there. And I don't know if there's a link to this, but this young woman jumped off a cliff and became a paraplegic and found her purpose after the accident happened. So we may not know what it is that we're supposed to do and what fills us up, but she found her purpose in service to others. So, and you have that as one of your seven skills. So if you're not in service to other people, if you have a message that needs to be, to me, this show is me being in service to other people, bringing you information that's transformational, bringing you confirmation that you're in the right place and you're on a journey, bringing you conversations that are transformational conversations, like this happiness conversation that we're having with Scott today. And again, Sheila, thank you. This has been amazing. So thanks for this introduction here. Is there anything else that you want to add to what we've talked about today, Scott? Is there anything that you want to, any additional message you want to convey to the audience?
Just kind of, I guess the last thing, that I have is that really we can reverse engineer a meaningful life. And if you think about it, we get played. We're playing the game of life, and we think we know how to play it. We think we know what it's all about. We think it's about, the Mercedes-Benz or the corner office or, the awards or whatever. And we get caught in that and we get really good at it and we become successful. And then we realize it's this empty success. We don't feel satisfied. We don't feel complete. We don't feel fulfilled. Well, for those people that feel like that feel like there's something more to them, I want them to know that there is a way that you can do this. You can reverse engineer it. You can change the direction of, the game that you're playing. You can find that is through service to others. You can find that it's through looking back at the challenges and hardships that you've had in your life. And maybe that is where you have your gift. Because you've gone through these things, you have something to share and to contribute to others. And by making that contribution, by really connecting in a meaningful way with friends and family and those around you, you can live a meaningful life. And so that's what drives me the most is helping people reverse engineer their meaningful life. And so if that's something that, that resonates with you, connect with me at scottwilhite.com and love to continue conversations, and I want to build a movement of more people who are they're masters of the end game. They really know where they're going, and they're bringing other people with them in a way that just really makes a difference in the world.
Wow. And there's also a Facebook page where people can go, facebook.com/Scott Wilhite. It's WILHITE official. Go there, like that page. And be the master of your end game. I love it. I just want to say thank you to you for coming to Transformational Tuesdays. I just want to make sure that nobody has a question. If anybody has a question or a comment before we close. Philomena, let me open your mic here, honey. Hang on one second. Okay, go ahead.
Real quickly, I feel happy today because I've been in the dentist office for an hour today, and I had to literally be like this.
There you go.
Yeah,
it changes you.
Said, oh, that's easy. And psychomatic muscles have always been an interest to me. I was 12 years old, living in Italy for like 6 or 7 weeks, but I was still living there. And my uncle Zio Luigi used to say, well, I want to show you, in Italian he said this, I want to show you how to be happy. So he would pretend he was smiling, and then all of a sudden, he would play this game with me. And I never forgot it. And I thought, well, it happened to be something I practiced. I've got numbness on one side, but if I was really not feeling happy and the way I really know I am, I would do this several times, not knowing any scientific rationale behind it, and I would skip and hum.
Wow.
So when people saw me skipping and humming, oh, there goes Manna, it's like, oh gosh, she's getting happy.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's my little scientific experiment.
Awesome. Thanks,
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm just so grateful that you were able to join us today, Scott. And once again, scottwilhite.com, Facebook, Scott Wilhite Official. Go to encourage.life. And what was the other one? There was another one, something, I wrote it down. Be happy.
Oh, yeah, gethappynow.life if you're
Right.
interested in a 12-week system that, helps you 10 minutes a day work on it. But thank you so much for letting me blab on about the stuff I've found. I get so excited about this, and I wish you could have seen me before, because you look at me and you go, oh, yeah, he's always been like that. But I was such a complainer. I was such a whiner, and I didn't realize how toxic I was.
Yeah.
But really, wherever you are in your happiness level, we can all get better.
Yeah.
And anyway.
And I'm so glad that you shared that. I have family members that are such complainers, and what you say about the physicality of being happy and how you're healthier, your body responds to your emotional state and your mental state. I have family members that are living in grief and worry and whatever the heck it is, and are consistently, and not just consistently, constantly, either in the doctor's office, in for surgery, all kinds of stuff going on. And I mean, we all have stuff that happens to us. Let's put that right there. But when it becomes a way of life, there has to be something that changes. And the fact that you have a scientific way for people to know that they can make a difference in their own life by making a few seemingly simple changes in the way that you are, the way that you're being, that gives me great hope for even my family members who are locked into self-pity and whatever else goes along with it. So I want to, again, thank you. And I hope you'll come back again to Transformational.
Blab some more?
Yeah, blab some more. I love it.
Well, thank you all for joining me. It was nice of you to hop on, and this is fun being able to see all your pictures and your smiling faces. You guys are doing great, and thank you for hanging out with us.
Karen Mayfield says, when we're happy, we turn into naggers. She's hiding herself right now, but she's funny. She's funny. She is definitely funny. But anyhow, thanks again, Scott. I so appreciate you. And I want to invite everybody. And if you want to come back to Transformational Tuesdays anytime you want, please do. Go to transformationaltuesdays.com and you'll find the route into this every day, every Tuesday at noon. And until we meet again next time, I invite you all to enjoy traveling what I call the transformational trails of life. Have a great day, everyone.